Galaxians, and welcome to another live edition of the Galaxy CDs, Rocks, and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. My name is Ryan, and in this episode, we're going to take a look at a couple of things going on. One in particular at eBay and one at Etsy that seem to be causing a concern and confusion. So let's just jump right into this. Once I can get these all sorted here. So we talked a little bit, I think last week, about eBay making some changes to their message boards. And there's an article over on Value Added Resource. eBay community forums return on new Bevy platform with, as I'm sure will come as no surprise, mixed early reviews. eBay community forums are back up as of a couple of days ago and running. Early sentiment mixed as buyers and sellers learn to navigate the new platform. This is going to be probably the overriding thing. Anytime there's a change, particularly in the navigation of these things, we all know how averse people are to change anyway, and this kind of exacerbated that. And longtime users of the community platform are struggling with the changes. eBay announced a migration to a new forum provider just a couple of weeks ago and then implemented it. So there wasn't a lot of warning. It was a first to reopen here in the US, and it appears that eBay may have decided also to extend the cutoff date and import at least some posts going back earlier than 2023. We talked about that, I think, last week as well, that there were a lot of older posts prior to 2023. Essentially everything was going to be deleted, deprecated. So a welcome post says that it may take a few weeks for pictures and other content to be fully migrated. As you can imagine, I would guess there are probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of posts and comments and replies. So the migration of all of that data to a new platform probably will take some time. My advice would be to be patient with that as it goes through. They note, as we complete the migration, some content, such as reactions and images, may not appear right away. This is expected, and all data will be available once the process is finished. Early reactions, as I said, are mixed. Many users are not big fans of the feature that provides an AI summary at the top of the discussion in the new form. This is one of the big uses of AI. You see it in Google search, you see it on Amazon, where there is a summary of reviews of a particular item. They are all going to this format where they're using AI to give you a quick summary of what the entire thread supposedly says, what all the reviews say on an item, what all the comments on a post might say in regard to that topic. The concern, of course, is that the AI may have received some editorial instructions to highlight some things and not others. So a lot of people just don't like that summary, not to mention the fact that in many cases, at least what people are finding on Google with the AI summary, there are some inaccuracies. And again, you would probably expect that to be true, as a lot of the information that we as users input. It's been one of the things I talk about pretty regularly on this show. Be careful where you get your advice. There's a lot of bad advice out there. There are a lot of incorrect answers to questions. And if those are captured in that AI summary and presented as correct information, that could really be problematic for people who are trying to find the answer to a question. One of the common threads on the new boards is, who is ready to have the old boards back? And again, you can see, if you're able to see on the screen, an AI summary of what that looks like. Other complaints about the new platform include no native dark mode. That may be something that's just coming down the road. No private messages and too many notifications and difficult navigation, though it's still possible, of course, that some of those may be resolved as this thing fully updates. Sellers also expressed mixed opinions on the way Bevy appears to force threaded replies, with some finding the format annoying, while others prefer it. I don't know if you've been over there. Here is an example of what that looks like. The navigation on the left bar is definitely different. There are several comments that people seem to be using the Ask a Mentor on the left rather than just posting to the community more broadly. That may be by design. You get a lot of repetitive on any message board, Facebook group, whatever. You get a lot of repetitive questions where people don't search first for an answer. So if they can funnel more of that into the Ask a Mentor rather than into the broader community, maybe that's a win. There'll be a lot less stuff there. In terms of the look of it, I don't know. I guess that's probably a little sleeker look, maybe a little bit more professional than the previous message board was. I, as I said last week, I don't spend a ton of time over there. I have not so far in my little bit of moving around had any issues finding anything, navigating, finding the answers that I was looking for. So if you are here live, let me know in the comments, in the chat, what you think. Speaking of, let's just hop over there. Good morning, Media Picker. No worries. You can always catch the second half on Team Replay. Den Decor, good morning. What a month on eBay. Yeah, I'm hearing it from everybody. Things are really slow. Last week, if you're following my kind of twice a week what sold videos, Monday was great. The middle of the week was pretty poor. Friday, okay. Saturday, pretty poor. Sunday was good. Monday and Tuesday this week have not been great. So it's really up and down, even more so than you might expect with the typical summer slowdown. Essex Sims, will you be watching the annual shareholder meeting? Generally, I don't. I'll go in afterwards and pick up the recaps from sites like Value Added Resource where they kind of summarize what it was, but I generally don't attend those. I've kind of gotten away, to be honest, from doing any of those, like the eBay Live and, the quarterly updates, because for me, they have become more of a rah-rah session for eBay than providing a ton of informative information. Obviously, the stock, results thing would be different, but I've just kind of moved away from attending those and relying kind of on the recaps. So Cozy Corner Treasures, welcome. Glad to be back. I am. I'm doing well. I've been, for those of you who follow my other channel, Cycling with Ryan, I've been doing a lot of biking. I went over 3,400 miles for the year so far. Earlier this week, my initial goal was 5,000 for the year, but now I'm shooting for 7,200 miles for the year. So we'll see how that goes. But it's done wonders for my fitness and my mental health as well. Cozy Corner Treasure is not a fan of the new community chat board. That seems to be a fairly common sentiment. Let us know in the chat. Is there something specific that you don't like? Is it the navigation? Is it the look? Is it the way the messages are being presented? I'm always curious to know what it is that's different. Is it legitimately a problem, or is this something that you'll be able to adapt to? Obviously, there's no going back. They're not going to turn back the clock and go back to what they were doing before, unfortunately. I don't know. Was there a problem with the message boards, with the community posts previously that needed updating? This Bevy is the same platform that Etsy uses. So I don't know if this is a cost saving measure or some way that the platforms gain more control over the way the content is disseminated. I'm not sure I understand the reason for the changes, but I am curious to know specifically what people think. Dash Rabbit, good morning. I've noticed that in the last month, the app has been lagging when adding listing details, wondering if the resources are going to the new dev. It's hard for me to say. I use the mobile app, but I'm using it on an old phone and I'm using an older version of it to do my listings, and it has its own issues, but I've not experienced any kind of lagginess really, other than one day where it seemed like it was just down totally. I probably need to go ahead and update to the newer version and just bite the bullet, but I'm always, with eBay in particular, I tend to want to wait for some of the bugs to get worked out, because as we talk about all the time, every time eBay rolls out an update or a change, it seems like there's downstream problems. And I've become very, maybe I am guilty of this as well, averse to change. I have a workflow that works for me. The older version of the app that I'm currently using works for me as well, so I'm just sticking with it. Zemar X, if I said that right, any chance you can pull up the annual shareholder meeting? probably not here um, in the live, but that is definitely something that people will be interested in hearing about. Media Picker says weather is not great outside. Good time for a live today. Yeah, I heard kind of southern parts of Illinois and northern parts of Indiana are in for a pretty rough day today. Looks like a lot of big storms, a lot of really strong straight line winds. So be safe out there. Any thoughts on GameStop's hostile takeover bid? Justin Resells recently interviewed Ryan Cohen, the CEO of GameStop. We have talked about that a couple times here on the show. I'm of a mixed opinion. I don't believe that ultimately that will go through. I just don't think that GameStop will have the financial wherewithal to make that happen. It would definitely be interesting. It sounds like he's got some definite ideas. I was watching another video unrelated to reselling this morning with breakfast, talking about, businesses who used to focus on creating a good customer experience and growing their business through adding customers because it was a good experience. And that at some point, they all seem to get away from that and focus on today's share price. I can remember this would have been 1999. I was a store manager for Best Buy. And one of the reasons I left was every morning we would get a message, it seemed like, from either the district manager or the regional manager recapping what yesterday's results were and asking what we were going to do in our stores to impact Best Buy's stock price today. It was never about how to improve the stores, how to improve the customer experience, how to make shopping easier or more fun, or encourage people to buy more. It was always about the stock price. And to be fair, those people were all incentivized. We were all incentivized to improve the stock price because we all got stock options. But you lose track of the thing that really makes your business successful to begin with, which is enhancing the customer experience and growing your business kind of organically. And you start trying to squeeze more money out of the same piece of pie. And that is what all of these sites, in particular eBay, have done to sellers. They're just squeezing more and more and more out of essentially the same amount of business. And it sounded like at least Cohen had some kind of ideas of some things he wanted to do to try to improve eBay's overall business through actual growth of sales rather than through squeezing sellers ever further. So I'm interested and I'm still following. I know they have increased their holdings in eBay, so they have not given up on it. They continue to pursue it. eBay, of course, for their part, said no, they were not interested. So I don't know if it will ultimately end up in a proxy fight and if eBay shareholders will think it's a good idea or not. It's going to be really interesting to see how that goes. And maybe there'll be some discussion of that at the shareholder meeting. Then Decor Depot says some fun commentary on Down Detector's eBay errors. Stores showing no inventory, search not working, buyers can't pay. Yeah, it's always interesting how often you come across issues as a seller or a buyer on eBay, and you go to eBay's technical outage page or whatever they call it, and it's all lit up in green. Everything's fine. It's just fine, but there are some things that you just literally cannot do at that particular moment. So Down Detector is a resource I use pretty regularly. Media Picker says, I'm under the bullseye today for major tornadoes, large hail, and 80+ mile-an-hour winds. Yeah, I was watching Ryan Hall, the YouTube weather guy, and he did a whole episode yesterday about this line of storms that should be coming through today. So definitely, if you're in that part of the country, stay safe. They moved the community boards as a way to wipe chat history before 2023. Value Added Resource wrote about this. Yeah, that's what we were kind of just talking about. I talked about it last week in the show, that my concern, you can see either point of view. There have been so many changes in how eBay operates, in how shipping operates, what the legal and tax stuff is. And there's so many things that have changed that a message or a thread that was posted in 2012 is all but irrelevant to what's going on today. So to some extent, I understand their desire to just clean up the threads so that they're in theory more relevant. The downside, of course, is that you've now lost, as I said last week, all of the history of eBay's issues. What has gone wrong? What has consistently gone wrong? You now don't have that track record that you can go back to and say, here's a thread from 12 years ago when you, eBay, had this same exact problem and it's not been fixed. And you've done all this other, you've added AI and you've changed the looks and you've done all this cosmetic stuff, but some really basic things like search not working properly continue to plague the site. And you've now lost that history to be able to go back and show that. So I don't use it a ton, but I do have that reservation that we've kind of lost that repository of issues and fixes over the years. Recommerce Dave, welcome. Good to see you again. I haven't used the message boards much. Honestly, Depop has been really good for the sub $15 items with free shipping, and the platform is covering. Right, I saw that, I think yesterday, that actually I think Vinted is also now doing free shipping. I don't know if that's a temporary thing that they're covering the cost of as a promotion, but that's really becoming a big deal. And that's good information for all of us to have. If you're a seller, you have categories that might work on Depop and you've been hesitant to go over there. Here you go. And kind of lower price stuff doing well over there. The free shipping is doing well. So again, like we talk about, if you're not cross-listing to additional sites, that's a great opportunity to at least look at that one. GameStop as of Friday holds 9.35% of eBay. Yeah, I don't know what their target is. I know initially when this all started, it was under 6%. So they have really acquired a lot of stock. There is a certain aspect of a bit of self-serving out of this. Cohen's compensation package is largely based on the price of, at least now, GameStop's stock. And if their acquisition of eBay stock drives up the price and the value of GameStop's stock, that's easy for me to say, it absolutely affects in a positive way his potential compensation. That was initially a concern, was that this was a little bit self-serving. I don't know. Again, an opportunity for GameStop to have significant growth, to drive additional traffic to their stores if they find some way to use their retail store outlets to support eBay buying, selling, shipping, whatever the case may be. It may end up being something that works for everybody, but there's always, again, to go back to what I just talked about earlier, when everybody is so focused on the stock price, decisions get made that are not necessarily always in the best interest of the business. They don't take into account long-term impacts of those decisions. There's a lot of what are my quarterly earnings reports going to look like? And you make a decision that may be profitable in the short run that causes you problems down the line. And then you're in this vicious circle of always trying to find people or programs to cut or changes to make to boost profits and stock price in a 90-day window. And you end up, you're a hamster on a wheel, just ever chasing those short-term results at the expense of the user experience and long-term gains as a business. I'm just a guy in my basement. But that's been my take. As I said, going back as far as the 90s when I was in management for Best Buy. Thank you for your honest thoughts about Ryan's bid. Long-term investor, and this acquisition will happen. You might be in for a surprise the coming month. The entire board might get fired. Yeah, I would assume if they're able to pull it off, they will absolutely be making wholesale changes. He had pretty much already indicated they were going to make big cuts in some of the promotional and advertising sections. He feels like eBay is throwing good money after bad in all of their marketing efforts, and that money would potentially be either better as just profit taking or better spent somewhere else. So yeah, I would expect there will be, if they're able to pull it off, massive changes in the corporate structure of the board. And obviously, he will install himself, or he will be installed as CEO of the larger now single company. So definitely will be interesting to watch. Cozy Corner Treasures, just not used to the look, and I'll adapt, but won't be going to it very much at this point. Back in the early days, it was a very fun board. And that's, again, I've talked about this quite a bit, not necessarily relating to the eBay message boards, but going online and trying to get information or get help for something in a Facebook group, on a message board for any site, not just eBay. There are two issues that keep coming up that I see repeatedly. One is, as I mentioned earlier, just the amount of incorrect information. You'll type in a question, how do I handle problem X? And you might get 3 or 4 different answers, some of which may be right and just a different way of doing things, and some of which may be completely wrong, and won't give you the result that you're looking for. So there's so much misinformation on some of these message boards and Facebook groups. The other thing is, obviously, people who are having a great experience are rarely online talking about it. But the people who have any kind of an issue or a problem are squawking quite loudly on those sites. So you go in and it's just one negative thing after another, and it can really start to affect your mood, your mental health, and your attitude towards your own performance on that platform or with whatever it is. And this is, again, it's not just with eBay, not just with reselling. I'm in several cycling communities where the overwhelming majority of the posts are problems, negative feelings towards a cycling platform or a brand. Meanwhile, there are hundreds or thousands of people that are just merrily going along their way, doing their business, not having any issues. So it's concerning when we go on those sites, that we're A, not getting the right information, and B, kind of going down a bit of a negative rabbit hole. Mixtape X1L, sorry, I have to tip my head back to read on the upper screen because my bifocals are all out of whack. So I'm not having a seizure. GameStop will 100% buy eBay. They've already begun the hostile takeover and should file SEC docs this week or next showing 10% ownership stake. They need to ramp the process. Matter of time. Will be interesting. Yeah, I wish everybody involved with that luck. It is a massive investment. I know they were acquiring a line of credit. There was discussion that they were talking to some of the Middle Eastern sovereign wealth funds to acquire money. They simply don't have the cash on hand to make this thing work by themselves. Obviously, there's going to be some stock transfers and whatnot that will help grease the skids, as it were. But this is a massive undertaking. Miss Lachey, good morning. Somewhere I read eBay hired a company that deals with hostile takeovers after the first offer. I'm not a stock person. Sorry, I'm not better with more details. No, I 100% would assume that they have hired a firm or attorneys who specialize in fighting off hostile takeover bids. They clearly aren't interested in being taken over by GameStop, or really, to be fair, probably anyone else. They want to continue to do what they're doing. So yeah, I'm sure they have put some arrows in the quiver, as it were, to try to fight this thing off. Cohen's compensation package is purely options, not actual stock grant. He has to buy the $3.5 billion of stock from the company at $20.66, not a gift. That's true, but as the stock goes up, if his option price is whatever, $20.66, he stands to make more money. Again, as a former manager at Best Buy who was granted options, when the stock price went up, my options were already vested at a certain price. And as the stock went up, I could buy at my low price and immediately sell them for a ton of profit. There was a running joke during the late 90s about the Best Buy millionaires. There were managers, store level managers, who had made literally millions of dollars in stock options by buying their options at the low price. The stock would split, it would go up, it would split again, and then they would sell. So while yes, he's not being necessarily granted stock, that type of compensation package obviously incentivizes him to make the stock price go up because his price is fixed. eBay board has done nothing but sell their own eBay stock since their placement with no record of share buys or faith in the company's own success. No one running eBay cares about eBay. I would not disagree with that. That's true of a lot of these sites. There was an article I read recently about the former CEO of Etsy. I think it's Josh Silverman. He had done the same thing. He had sold tons and tons and tons of stock. They like the stock. They're every quarter when they do their quarterly earnings report, they report that they have bought so many shares back off of the market. So they, as a company, they definitely like reacquiring their own stock. But yeah, I'm sure most of them, I assume, are on a similar package with a fairly modest base salary and then some kind of stock, whether they be grants or options. And that's where they can make a lot of their money, and B, some of that has a different tax treatment than conventional income as well. So Nike Dad went all in on GameStop. Yeah, and that whole thing is fascinating because it's not that far in the past that GameStop looked to be in significant trouble. They were in really bad financial shape. Their stock was not doing well. And to his credit, Cohen came in and reversed the thing. There was a certain element of, irrational exuberance, to use the phrase, where it became kind of a meme stock and people were just buying and trading and the stock just went through the roof. Now they are in a position because of that they do have, what is it, $9.5 billion or something like that cash on hand to be able to look at doing stuff like this. And with that sort of money available, you can look at lines of credit and other investments to make a big acquisition like this, at least on paper, look possible. So it's been a fascinating story to watch going back several years, just GameStop in general, the way they have reinvented themselves in the day of digital downloads on gaming. I can't tell you the last time I bought a physical copy of a game or the last time I set foot in a GameStop store. But they continue to, at least on paper, look like they're doing really well. Jeff Zenick, good morning. Thanks for stopping out. GameStop is currently trading under the cash they have on hand. Ryan has turned the company around, generates $600 million in free cash flow. Yep, that's what we were just talking about. They've done a remarkable job reinventing their business. I don't know all the details. I don't know what changes were made that caused all this. I just know from reading the news that it has gone very much in the right direction. Miss Lachey, lots of new people in the chat. Are you reaching a new audience? I don't know. Maybe. I have seen quite a few unfamiliar names. If you are new here, hey, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. I try to do these lives once a week or so. Sometimes it's a lot less often, but and I've tried to just ramp up the number of videos that I'm doing on this channel covering things like news and other topics related, or at least tangentially related to reselling. So, but if you're here for the first time, please consider subscribing to the channel. And the thing I'm always bad at, if you're getting something out of this today, whether it's from me or from people in the chat, the community, please hit that thumbs up button. Den Decor used to be in a lot of reselling Facebook groups, and I left all of them. Way too negative and way too much incorrect info. Yeah, and I've talked about that numerous times, particularly in regards to newer sellers. It's really concerning for me as someone who tries to be informative and whatever, somewhat educational with the content that I put out, that there is so much misinformation and negativity that would either dissuade someone from looking at this as a viable income option or send them down the wrong path in terms of what they're doing or how they're doing things on a given site. that would make their experience one that they don't want to continue. And this is obviously a terrific opportunity as either a side hustle or, as is the case for many of us, a full-time income. So those kind of things, it's unfortunate. And it's one of the reasons I do these lives is so that this community, you can have this chat. I talk about it almost every week. You guys answer each other's questions. You give each other advice and tips and suggestions that are almost universally positive and helpful. And that's, as I said in my success video over the weekend, if one of these videos or one of these lives helps one person do something that they weren't able to do before, that's a win in my book. Do I have a cleared garage yet? Any bulk buys happening soon? I do not actually have a cleared garage. I had 2 different estate sellers that reached out to me over the last 3 weeks that had significant amounts of inventory that they wanted to offload. I did a free book pickup of 400 and some recently, and then I did a big buy of, I think it was almost 600 books. It was either early last week or late the week prior. So no, I had the garage to a manageable level, and now it's full again. At least one side, I can still get my car in the garage, so it's not as bad as it was, whatever it was last summer, where the entire garage was full. But yeah, it's still, one side is completely full. Cozy Corner Treasures, I agree. Rarely had my question answered, and it did become a toxic environment. Yep. And again, to be fair, it's not just resellers and reselling related. It's almost anything you would look to do and get online. Big Dre, welcome. Good to see you. Rags Gator, is making money illegal? No, it is not. And again, you see that with big companies. A lot of people point out big companies are greedy and whatever. They do have a responsibility to make money. We're all in it to make money. They have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders to make money. The concern that I have had for what is coming up on 30 plus years now is the short-sightedness of how some companies elect to make money. Letting everybody go to replace with AI, for instance, and then, finding that AI is costing them more money. Things that look good on paper that ultimately are not great in practice. You see it all the time, again, on Facebook threads and whatever, where individual resellers are called, scum and scammers and ripoff artists because we find items that someone else is undervaluing and properly value them and sell them for profit. I don't see any issue with any of that, as long as it's done ethically. And again, you're thinking about a long-term goal. I talked last week about sometimes missing the forest for the trees, looking at an individual item and saying, this thing is not worth doing because it's only $4, $5, $6, where in the broader scheme of things, like in the case of me, where I acquire 4, 5, 6, 700 books at a time, over the long haul, those $5, $6, $7 books all add up to a ton of money. So while any one individual book doesn't look like much, in aggregate, it ends up being a pretty good living. Then Decor, yep, and Best Buy didn't have to give you any raises. Yeah, I'll be fair. They were pretty good about that. We'll go down a Best Buy tangent here. So I was in a position where I got promoted within like 1 week of my annual review date. And at the same time, Best Buy was doing a salary evaluation of managers, and they uncovered that for whatever reason, the western part of the country was at a slightly higher wage scale than the eastern half. So in the span of about 2.5 weeks, I got 3 raises. I got my increase for my annual performance review, I got my promotion increase, and I got a bump that everybody east of the Mississippi apparently was getting because there was some discrepancy in how salaries had been calculated. So I got a essentially massive raise in a very short window. From that standpoint, they were more than fair to me. He has to increase the company's market cap from 10 billion to 100 billion to make this money, though. He takes zero in compensation, which we just talked about, since 2020, and he owns 12% of the stock, which he bought with his own money. Yep. That's a big ask. From 10 billion to 100 billion is a big, big jump. He's a rock star right now. I mean, he's all over the news doing the interviews. And he appears to be someone who is at least, again, making an effort to grow a business without squeezing like every last nickel out of certain aspects of it. I did have some concerns about his talk of, cutting all of the promotional budget out of eBay. I think his comment was, they have spent all this money on advertising and promotion and not shown any growth, so why spend the money? And my retort was, what if the only reason that eBay has even remained level, given all the additional competition, is because of that marketing spend? And you take all that money out and things crater. So I don't have access to the numbers. He may not really either just yet, but there is an element of that. You don't know kind of what you don't know about what the results of that marketing spend actually are. What I found impressive about GameStop's Ryan is his resume is way more impressive than the past two eBay CEOs. I think that bar is reasonably low. He seems more grounded to me for a CEO. He does seem like, I've seen a couple of interviews with him, and he is not the typical kind of whatever stuffed shirt business executive. He seems like a much more down to earth, normal human being. So that's interesting as well. Same with Reddit, says Dash Rabbit. It is all rage and misinformation. Yeah, I don't spend much time on Reddit either. Yes, AI is bad. And again, to be fair, there are some uses for AI. I do some things with it. There are some things it's actually really, really good at. But there are also some things it is not, in my opinion, quite ready for prime time. Then, of course, I'd love to see eBay make an affordable managed shipping program for one cost. Poshmark does a good job with it. It's going to be future of the platforms. Obviously, we talked last week about the announcement that they had in their terms of use update, where they're hinting at a managed shipping program. It'll be interesting to see what that ultimately looks like. And how that goes. Speaking of shipping, let me hit this topic here before we get back into the rest of the chat. Etsy made an update to their shipping labels last week, which sparked seller privacy and security concerns. Recent changes, which added shop names to Etsy shipping labels, raised those concerns. I don't use Etsy labels. If you do, let us know in the chat. Did you see this? Did you notice it? Had your shop name always been appearing, or were you using something else? The label updates appear to have gone into effect within the last few weeks, with shop names now being shown on the labels regardless of any previous settings, according to sellers, again, in the community forum. USPS labels purchased via Etsy started showing the seller Etsy shop name on the return address. This is going to be a problem for several types of Etsy sellers. Any seller with a shop name, including the words jewelry, coins, collectibles, antiques, or etc., which have valuable items, now faces a higher risk of mail theft. If it says right on the envelope jewelry in the name of the company, that's a pretty good identifier of what might be in that package, which in theory would open it up potentially to theft. Shop names including words related to sexual wellness products, LGBTQ products may cause potential customer embarrassment or harm due to the packaging now displaying that information. So again, if you have that in your shop name and it's now appearing on that label, when you have previously been set up to send out packages discreetly with nothing indicating one way or the other what may or may not be in that package, this could be a problem. The user went on to say, I'm not familiar with all the categories of products sold on Etsy, but I'm sure there are additional categories where buyers would also not want the store name displayed. Seeing the shop name may effectively spoil a gift surprise for the intended recipient. Other sellers confirmed the previous generic information like shipping department or acronyms and abbreviated names they had been previously entered in their settings to make labels more discreet are now being replaced by their full shop names. Some suggest alternative options for purchasing labels like pirate ship, which is who I use, while others say they found a workaround that may be available when accessing Etsy in some browsers. If you use Firefox as your browser, you can click on the pencil near the top right of the screen, right above the gray, and then click on the black square to change it to white, increase the thickness, and then you can erase the extra name you don't want on your return address before you print. Seems like a lot of extra work to delete your name. Let me know in the chat, or if you're on Team Replay, in the comments down below. Did you notice this? Have you experienced it? And what are your thoughts on it? They haven't, as far as I know, said anything about this one way or the other, why it's happened, what it's for. I don't know if potentially this has something to do with disclosure issues. I know in Europe, they're really big on, you've got to disclose the name of your business and, the address and all kinds of information. I don't know if this is related to that in some way, that a generic shipping department or an acronym rather than the actual business name falls afoul of some of those regulations. They have not really addressed it. So a potential problem, and something that definitely has Etsy sellers up in arms. As for working for the man in the 90s and aughts to '08, I remember Christmas bonuses, crisp $100 bills, no checks, right? The days of Christmas bonuses. That's one downside, I guess, to working for ourselves. You don't get anything like that. You absolutely get out what you put in to your business, but there's no like extras, which those were kind of nice. Not necessarily just the pizza parties. That never really did much for me. But like getting some stock options or a Christmas bonus or an annual bonus, a performance bonus if you did really well. Those things were always fun and helpful. Big Dre says, yeah, you're a scum and a scammer if you resell Pokemon or collectibles, but hey, leave you alone if you sell books or vacuums. Never mind the fact that the company's selling aid items intentionally. Right, and it does seem to be category specific. I've noticed it, as you mentioned, trading cards, Hot Wheels, things that there are big collectors markets for tend to be the ones that get the most hate. Again, there is some of that is, I would say, with cause. There are some resellers who are, let's say, overzealous in how they act in Target when they're trying to buy Hot Wheels or, trading cards or whatever it is. And they scoop up everything, and the little kid standing behind them is unable to get anything because the reseller grabbed it all. So I get where some of that comes from. But again, all these stores, every store you go into is essentially a reseller. They're buying for someone else at a lower price and selling to you and me at a higher price to make profit. That is just how capitalism works. So the notion that resellers are stealing from the poor by shopping at thrift stores, that's another one I see all the time. I completely disagree with. There are most thrift stores get more donations than they know what to do with. And some of that is being sent overseas. Some of it is just going to the landfill because they simply can't sell enough stuff to move through all the donations that they receive. So we as resellers going in and acquiring goods to sell on eBay or Poshmark or whatever are not stealing from the poor by any stretch. Now, I would say, and we've talked about this as well, the impact on pricing at a store like Goodwill, for instance, has definitely been noticeable. And it does, I think, tie back to resellers because Goodwill, and again, as someone commented earlier, it's not illegal to make money. If they're recognizing that the market value of an item is now higher than they thought it was, that's all fair. But it is definitely reseller related, that they have found that there are certain brands or certain types of items that they were undervaluing in their stores that they are now trying to right size, I guess you could say. Sometimes they're way out of line. You see posts on Instagram and whatever of a pair of shoes that are essentially being listed at like new prices at Goodwill. That's not the answer either. But yeah, we are absolutely not stealing from the mouths of babes, as it were. Sell limited supply or print run with resellers in mind to cause a shortage, which is what they want, so they sell out. Again, yes, they're trying to drive up their own value of the items that they're trying to sell. So yeah, if they create a shortage or a scarcity to drive up the price, whether it's through selling to resellers or otherwise, that's just a win for them. And again, could positively impact their stock price as well. So it's a win all the way around. They never go after the company creating said artificial shortage. Right. What's easier to pick on Ryan in his basement than it is to complain about a big company? Then Decor Depot says it had my name. It's now my shop. I'd rather that, to be honest. That's fair. Yeah. If it had your actual name on the label rather than the business name makes more sense, especially if it's something that is not going to cause, again, potential embarrassment or disclose what an item might be. Stores that are using words like jewelry or collectible in their shop name are right to be concerned about it, I would say. Recommerce Dave, with postage labels, there's a global standardization push, especially from Europe. In Australia, all labels must show the buyer's phone number or email address starting in August. Wow, that's an interesting one to me, because there's this tug of war between disclosure, public disclosure of information so that people feel comfortable and safe, and on the other side, the privacy concerns that people rightly hold about having things like their phone number or email published on a shipping label. I frankly would not want that. I get enough spam as it is. And again, I don't think scammers are necessarily going around in the mail and looking at everybody's shipping label, but that is an opportunity for misuse of personally identifiable information. That one is crazy to me. Target is only giving Pokemon stock to parents with children as of this week, apparently. I did see, I had my two boys at Target last week, and I saw some signs about limited quantities. You could only buy, it was, I don't know, it said something about a quantity that would be normal for personal use. So trying to limit it to a case or a box or two rather than a cart full. So they're trying to limit one person buying out an entire shelf. Again, their job is to sell it and to make money. And there comes that fine line between the short term, just allowing one guy to come in and load up a cart and buy it all, and you get this one big hit of whatever it is, $1,000 worth of merchandise, or the long-term public benefit of having more goods available for more people to buy so that you have more people coming through your doors. It's a tough thing to navigate for some of these stores. In regards to collectible cards, especially graded ones, when GameStop takes over eBay, they will relaunch a collectibles division that will be heavily interwoven with PSA's vault. And that would absolutely make sense. There are definitely some synergies in having the retail storefront architecture and infrastructure that they have, where they could become a point of pickup for things that go through PSA, where you could control all that. eBay has been trying to get more and more of that in-house anyway, with their lockers and all that stuff. So if they can, again, assuming they're able to acquire it, if they can find a way to utilize their stores to the benefit of buyers and sellers on eBay, that's a huge potential opportunity. And again, a way to potentially grow eBay's business organically, rather than squeezing sellers for another 1% of promoted listings or an extra 1/3% in a final value fee, or whatever the case may be. So I'm still skeptical that they'll actually be able to pull it off, but there are definitely some potential huge advantages if they do. This will bring peer-to-peer digital sales of physical cards with no taxes. That will be interesting, because if GameStop has a retail nexus in a particular site, and they are like eBay is now, the conductor of that transaction of record, will they be required to collect sales tax? That will be an interesting one to see. You can find all kinds of videos of fights in public over Pokemon cards. Yep. I can remember, not to keep harping on Best Buy, I remember like the Black Friday, my first Black Friday at Best Buy, we literally had people fighting in the aisles over doorbusters. It was the beginning of the end for me in a retail career, watching that kind of, and I talk about it kind of at Christmas time every year. It really ruined the holiday season for me because you kind of saw the worst of humanity, and this is kind of another case like that. Den Decor says sold on Etsy, Depop, and Poshmark in this live. Come on, eBay, do something. That is, again, that is something I've heard a lot of sellers say, that all of these other platforms seem to be chugging right along and eBay is on the struggle bus. So I don't know. Cartful sales don't generate peripheral sales. No, absolutely. You get a customer that comes in and all they want are all the Pokemon cards or whatever it is. They're not walking through the store buying more profitable items like clothing or impulse items at the counters. They're going in to get what they want, buying it all up and getting out. So yeah, it doesn't create opportunities for additional money. You know, one of the old retail strategies is to put high profit impulse items on the end caps or at the registers, to put the more interesting stuff that people might want towards the back of the store. So people are forced to walk through the entire store to get to the thing that they want, and maybe they see something else. So that is absolutely the case. Recommerce Dave said, no phone number or email address. The post office will not take your parcel. It's to facilitate text notification of parcel pickup at a postage locker or post office rather than leave a collection card. I mean, I guess I get it from a logistics standpoint, but man, I don't know. On the label, it just seems like you would be able to put it in, like electronically tie it to the tracking number so that a post office employee could scan the barcode and see that information. I know that adds an extra step, but having it publicly shown on the label just seems bold. PSA Vault is incorporated in Delaware. Currently, their Power Packs service charges no sales tax when you buy or sell back. GameStop storefronts will be pickups only for Vault transfers. Pokemon is very strange because it's clearly made for children, but adults seem to be buying it for themselves. In fact, I saw a video of the grand opening of Pokemon Park in Japan and only saw 5 kids. It's old enough now. Pokemon's been around long enough that like the early kids that would have been into it are now kind of the grown-ups, I guess. And they're way into it. Single adults. Yeah. Single young adults. Disney adults would like a word. We are rapidly approaching the 1 hour mark, which is where I like to keep these so people can get on with everything else that they need to do. So we'll go one more round if anybody has anything else that they would like to discuss in the chat. As always, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, your information, your tips, tricks, and advice in the chat. I always appreciate very much how you guys inform all of us about things that you know that a lot of us may not be aware of. Initial Pokemon players are now in their mid-30s. Yep, very much the case. One last question. What was your least favorite thing about eBay as a reseller? The fees. I think that would probably be most people's answer. I would say over the last several years, the changes in the structure of the site to almost force people to use promoted listings at some level or other to, in some cases, just maintain their business, but certainly to grow their business, to the way they have, as I've said several times in this particular episode, squeezed sellers for additional money rather than growing my business, or rather than finding more buyers who would be interested in the things that I sell. They have attempted to get more money out of the sales that I'm already generating through either increases in fees or the reliance on one of multiple different promoted listings campaigns, priority, general, offsite, store. I mean, they've got a ton of different campaigns, all of which work to some extent. I use promoted listings. It has definitely had an impact on my business positively, even though I'm paying those extra fees. But as I say, every time I talk about promoted listings, it bothers me that we as sellers who are doing what we're supposed to do, creating good, sellable listings, lots of photos, good descriptions, all the item specifics filled out. But the best way to get your listing surfaced is still to pay a promoted listing fee. And eBay should already be showing those better listings at the top. So that would be my biggest complaint. I find it interesting how some other platforms are doing well on significantly less in terms of fees. Mercari is a flat 10%. I think Depop is less. It doesn't need to be as high as it is. And again, that goes back to them not growing their business in a real way, in my opinion. Long live eBay, right? And again, to be fair, I would be in big trouble without eBay. It is routinely 75 to 85% of my business in a given week. Most of us could not do what we do, certainly not full time, without eBay. It's a necessary evil, which they know, which is why they feel like they can get away with what we just talked about in terms of the fees. Recommerce Dave says, would I change my business model on eBay if they introduced free selling in the US, especially for your lower value books? I probably would not. And I guess it depends on how they do it. Like in Europe, in England, there's a certain limit on the amount of listings that you can have, the amount of transactions that you can process before they will consider you to be a business, not an individual. I would not be able to make enough money to live as a C2C seller, as a private seller using the European nomenclature. So I would probably continue to be, set up as a business and continue to want to do tons of listings, even at low value. I know overseas there was some consideration. A lot of sellers were talking about opening second shops, private shops to handle those lower cost items and a smaller quantity of them to avoid having to pay the fees. That potentially might be an option if I wanted to go down that route where all my, sub whatever $8 stuff went onto a private account. The problem that I would probably have again is going to go back to the sheer overwhelming quantity of that type of stuff that I end up with. Ms. Lachey with the thumbs up. Again, if you got something out of this episode today, whether it's from me or anyone in the chat, please hit that thumbs up button. Ms. Lachey says other sites are doing well, but the bottom line is that most resellers get most of their income from eBay sales, excluding Amazon. Yep. And depending on your category, truly excluding Amazon, because they have gated so many categories that it's hard for newer sellers and sometimes even seasoned sellers who have been on Amazon a long time to do the kind of business that they were doing over there. Dan D, going to stream the meeting. I am not. No, we're going to be wrapping this up. Hopefully you can find the meeting if you're inclined to watch it. You might want to get your popcorn ready. That one might be interesting. I'll be back to pick your brain. Early welcome to GameStop. I appreciate it. Welcome. Thanks for coming by. We'll make this the last one. Definitely eBay is still the king, but my cross-listed income almost matches it. Man, I wish I was there. I'm not anywhere near that level. It's started to move in that direction with the addition of some additional product categories and so on. But yeah, it is a long way from that for me. Nose Addict, good morning. Welcome. You got here just in time for me to say goodbye. You could split your store in Australia. A casual seller can still have up to 250,000 listings. I would not come anywhere near having that many. So if that was the way that went, that would definitely open up some opportunities to look at fee-free selling on a smaller store with lower cost items. Then the question becomes, are those items competitive if, like in Europe, the buyer is paying a buyer protection fee So the seller's not paying a fee. Is my $5.99 book, can I still list it for $5.99, or do I still need to take into account the fact that a fee is still being paid, even though it's being paid by the buyer? And if I have to lower my price to account for the fact that the buyer's going to have to pay a fee, I am in essence still paying that fee. It's one of the issues I had with business sellers looking at doing these things privately. If you're going to have to account for that in your listing price and your selling price, then you're not really money ahead with fee-free selling. So a lot of math and research to be done on that kind of front before you would know whether it actually made sense to do or not. Den Decor, thank you. Thank you again to everybody who came out today. Indeed, everybody have a great day. And until next time, my friends, it's time to sell. Thanks, guys.